Everyone dreams of living an uncommon life. And the best asset you have to achieve your dreams is you. Welcome to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast. We're going to introduce you to people who are living uncommonly. We're also going to give you some tools and strategies for building wealth and for pursuing an uncommon path that is uniquely right for you.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Uncommon Wealth Podcast, where I'm your host, Philip Ramsey. Today, I cannot wait. I'm going to be like Tom Brady and like, let's effing go. You know what I'm saying? With these two people, we have Greg and Libby Olson, a married couple. And you guys know, if you guys listen for us, this is one of my favorites. Get both people on. So let me give you the bio and then we'll jump into this. So Greg Olson is a visionary and founder of the CEO of Growl, a marketing agency he launched to shake up the traditional marketing world with a career spanning over 2 decades in the B2B marketing.
Did you say visionary? Hold on.
Visionary.
I heard visionary, and I don't know. Okay.
Totally
keep going. I don't want to interrupt you, but I think we could use a different word than visionary.
Master at blending technology and storytelling, helping brands cut through the noise and truly connect with your audience. When he's not driving marketing and innovation, there's another one. Greg is improv enthusiast. That's going to come up later.
I wrote that for my mom, by the way, so that is not for anybody else. No one cares.
Outdoor adventurer and the guy to make you laugh at a meeting. You've already heard it now. Greg Olson. Okay. His other half, Libby Olson, is Growl's partner and COO, the agency's operational powerhouse and creative strategist with a background in leading marketing for tech and SaaS brands. Libby is passionate about crafting data-driven strategies and delivering real results for championing collaboration across teams.
You didn't say very good looking, too.
Just smoking, right? And you don't even get to see that. I do, so it's on me.
I'm just saying.
Outside the boardroom, Libby is deeply involved with the community, loves mentoring future marketers, and brings the spark of creative to everything she touches. They're amazing. They're married. How long you guys married?
12 and a half years.
72 years.
72 years.
Oh, sorry.
That feels
okay.
like.
So that's my biography. That's like what, let's just do some research quick. I hate reading out loud, but here we are. My question to you guys is, if you had to do the bio for the other person, what would it say? Boom. We're going to start with Greg, and then we're going to go to Libby. Improv.
I would say Libby, she's the rock that holds Growl together. And I might have heard that from somewhere else that we were talking, but it is true. She has a mental filing cabinet that is, I don't know how she can hold it all in there, Philip. It is one of those very special skills where, she can pull up information, background, technology, and very impressive of how she does it. So we're very lucky that we have that opportunity to work together and moving forward. So yeah, the rock, the inspiration, and the good looks.
Love it.
We can just keep saying that because nobody can validate it.
All right, Libby, what would be Greg's?
All right. I would say Greg is the ultimate engager. Greg can walk into a room and probably is even more comfortable walking into a room of a whole bunch of people he does not know and become everybody's best friend right away. He can reach out and even with people that we know, like with our employees, he's going to be the first one to ask, hey, how are you doing? How are things going? How was this thing that you talked about a week ago? Right. Whereas I tend to get right into the to-dos and tasks. So, Greg is definitely the ultimate engager, and it's really what makes him so successful at, bringing in new clients. And, he is our visionary. He is our person out in the street, engaging with new opportunities. And that's what makes him such a good leader and success in that space.
It's good. Okay. So when you combine both of those biographies, it's just like you guys are magnetic. So I can't believe I got you on this show. I'm pretty excited about it. I love that we have a relationship outside the show and we actually can conversate and talk about this stuff. I really do feel blessed to know you, and together you guys are magnetic. So thank you for being on the show. My first question for you guys is, how in the world do two people like you meet?
Wow.
In a very uncommon way.
There it is. Let's go. You just believe your DNA is just uncommon.
Yeah. Our story goes back a lot longer than 12 and a half years. We met through work, sort of. Greg was working for a trade show company, and this is probably 25 years ago. So Greg was working for a company who built trade shows, and he was a project manager.
I was 12 years old.
Yes, exactly.
I was a very young man. Motor on, I don't know. So yeah, child.
Yeah, savant. And I was the marketing girl at a company, a manufacturing company, and Greg was the project manager for our booth. So we were building a booth together. We met that's how we met originally.
I think you had on very sexy shoes too. That's probably
highly possible. I did like to wear high heels a lot.
For a B2B manufacturing, it was very like inappropriate shoe wear to work. And most people have to wear, steel-toed shoes, steel-toed boots, not Libby. So.
No, I did.
She's the marketer.
Imelda Marcos was definitely an idol of mine, being able to have that many shoes. Not so much anymore, but so that's originally how we met. We went out for drinks once at that point. Greg's a little bit older than me. Greg's 8 years older than me. And so back when I was early 20s, that was a lot. That was a big difference. And so we just were in different stages of life. Our paths went separate ways after that. We stopped working with that company for a completely different reason. And come about 5 years later, I'm in a different job. He's working for an agency. And I had bought a condo in downtown Denver. I was renovating that as a late 20-something. And when you don't have a lot of money, you learn quickly that even to get rid of stuff, you have to pay for it, unless you put it up on Craigslist and someone will come pick it up for free. And so Greg was looking for cabinets for his garage, and I was getting rid of my 1970s kitchen cabinets. And so I threw them up on Craigslist. We were interacting back and forth. He came to get them, and we were like, "Hey, I know you.
You're the one with the shoes."
Right. Yeah. So as I said, he was working for an agency at that time. I worked for a startup. So we again did one project together, and that was it. He was with somebody, I was with somebody. So we didn't date at that point either. We did one project. We were a startup. We had no money. So that was the only project we really did together. And then fast forward another about 5 years, and, when Twitter was coming out, and Greg was on Twitter at some point, like on a Friday night. He was out here actually with his parents in Fruta, and posted something business related on a Friday night. I DM'd him or commented, I can't remember, and said, "How lame that you're posting about business on a Friday night." In his snarkiness, he responded and said, "How lame that you're responding to my business post on a Friday night." And so we proceeded to get drinks after that. And I'll let Greg finish the story because I think it's his favorite part.
Hit me.
I don't know on this this podcast. If it's PG-13, we can talk about it. So
we're talking about it. We go pretty deep there.
It was a little uncommon. Neither of us really interested in. We both are getting out of relationships, and I don't know how many times our paths have crossed. But she thought I either wanted business or I wanted to date. I didn't either. We got together. We ended up living just blocks from each other this whole time. But it was one of those nights that we were only going to meet for an hour. Fast forward
4 hours later,
more than that probably. And, we're sitting in another bar at the basement in a dark corner, really learning about, we're like high school kids underneath the bleachers making out. We're those people. So, and you would think after that, we'd be like, oh, we fell deeply in love. We actually were embarrassed, and it took another probably, 8 months for us to figure out that we were ready to actually, I think God put us together. I think it was at first he kept trying over many years to say that, hey, I keep putting you two together because there's really no one else for you. So you will try again. And he kept trying and trying and trying and trying. And then here we are. So I honestly think God put us together because
God said nobody else is going to put up with either of you. So
it's
just
a perfect
figure it
marriage.
out.
It's a perfect marriage.
Yeah, it is. And I don't think anybody would put up with us. So yeah, but a little bit uncommon. I think it's uncommon. But
yeah,
I
love that story.
But I'm pretty lucky to have a super hot business partner. Not anybody can say that.
It's true.
Yeah.
12 years later, more than 12 years. You guys are rocking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how long you guys have known each other? Like when you started from the way back till
If you
now?
go all the way back, it's probably been 25 years. I think I was 25 or a couple years under 25 and 49 now. So
I love it.
Gosh,
Okay.
that's a long time ago.
So for the listeners, you know that I'm kind of like hot for 2026, the yes and. I just love that concept. And I feel like these two encompass that so well. And so their life has changed drastically because they just started this whole yes and thing. And you heard it in the biography with Greg being the improv guy. So let's talk about the yes and in your life. And we can talk about different facets. We can talk about relationships. We can talk about your work. We can talk about your business, running a business, your health, stewardship, the way you cast vision. I think this can go many different ways. But one thing I really wanted to get you on early on in 2026 is because my yes and year is really stemming from the Olsons and you guys' like passion for not only just saying yes and, but like contributing in such a way, authentic way that adds this environment of just encouragement and energy and excitement and like everything that's positive is just you guys. So let's talk about yes and for you guys. How did it start? Where does it brought you? And like, I probably won't talk for the rest of the interview. So thanks for letting me be on the show.
Well, I just want to say it and Libby, we can talk about it. But I think the biggest thing for your listeners is, there was a book. I mean, this isn't why, but Yes Man is a book and it was a movie and, fantastic that someone has to say yes to everything, whatever someone asks them. It's actually, I think, a really good book. I think it's a fun movie to watch. And I think in many times in society, or we get busy or we get into a grind that, we don't want to really try new things is challenging, right? It takes time. Like you're going to go to try a new class, or especially as we get older, right? You just get set in our ways, right? And but I think it does break that cycle. And Libby can talk a little bit about that is like, just because we've always done something one way, that is always the way it's going to be. And I think if we're going to change, I think having that yes and attitude, and I think that formulates from improv. And it is if you want to look it up, it's a well-known thing when you're in improv, and somebody comes to you in improv and says, an example would be someone stacking an invisible something, an improv on a stage, right? And I remember when I was first doing improv school, I actually went to improv school. Can't believe Libby stuck with me through all those years.
I can't believe there's such a thing.
Yeah,
I love it.
There's a lot of improv schools, and I got to go as I traveled for business. One thing's cool about improv is you go to any city and you want to go to you go to an improv like Second City. Not that you go on the big stage at Second City, but there's all these little stages. In New York, I went on some. I would just call up and be like, "Hey, do you guys have guests come in? I'm an improv student, or I go do improv in Denver at this place." Most of them know of each other, but I would just call up places, and I got to be on stages in New York City with like actors. Like real actors that we see on movies and TVs, they go back to improv to re-ground themselves, and you'll see them. They don't even want to know. Like they're not there to be like, "Hey, we're having Philip Ramsey, who's been on 17 TV shows and 4 movies." They don't announce it. They just come and play, right? Because they're just trying to get grounded. So I got to go. It was a thing to push yourself to be on stage with new people, and that yes and mentality allows you to always say yes to whatever they're doing. So if someone's stacking, like they're stacking, like.
Ice sculptures to make
whatever they're stacking something, they're talking like, "Oh, we got to get going, help me move these, help me move all this over." And they're like, and then maybe they say, "Yeah, this firewood is, and then you change it and come in and be like, "Firewood? Why are we moving firewood?" That's a no, right? Yep. But then you take it and you're like, "Oh, this is great. I can go carve I've always wanted to carve my own Oscar awards. And then the next guy comes in and be like, oh, he takes it from there. So it's a yes and always keeps things moving forward, right? And so that's kind of the mentality we have. And this year, Libby said, I want to make it the year of yes. I interpreted that. I said, there's a lot of things we can say, but she has been pretty good. I keep running into 10Ks, 8-mile runs in cold Iowa. You said yes to that too. We did that recently together. Unbelievable. But having that yes and mindset, I think, is so important as a person, in a business, but also in a marriage. Libby, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the yes and mindset really has been a foundation for Growl. It's one of our 5 values. We have it on a poster in our office. And it really is one of the core things that we want our employees, us, to always be mindful of as we're dealing with clients. Clients can always bring curveballs, and we just want to kind of take that curveball and go, yep, and here's how we're going to manage that, and we can do this, and just always have that positive mindset. And then kind of tied to the book that Greg was talking about, so that Yes Man book, this is also a little bit inspired by my best friend. So she, many years ago, she was so sick of dating, and so she just decided, I'm going to do a year of yes. And I'm going to say yes to everybody who wants a date, whether that's one date or it turns into more. I'm just going to do my year of yes. And she ended up meeting her husband that year.
Okay.
And so it worked out for her. And I think, just as Greg said, we get, especially as business owners, we get so bogged down and we get tired, and we start to say no to a lot of things just in life in general because we're tired. We're trying to protect ourselves. We doubt ourselves, whatever the reason. And I think, so I just, and we had, like a lot of people, we had a tough 2025. 2025, I think, rocked everybody's world in one way or another. And so kind of coming out of that, wanted to just reset everything and say, well, let's just say yes to pretty much everything. And whether it's once or it's something we find out we love, or we can say, well, we did that. We're not going to do it again, but it was an experience and we have a story to tell about it, and really bring that adventurous mindset back that I felt like we used to have a lot of, you heard our get together story. We used to be a lot more adventurous, and that spark has left over the last couple of years, especially I think in the business side. So just being a little more open to risk, open to new ideas, open to whatever God might bring our way, and just say yes.
Yeah, I totally feel like that's been kind of the feel that I've gotten as I've gotten this whole uncommon wealth thing, like really pouring into people, like how has God uniquely gifted you? I feel like people lose that excitement, enthusiasm, all the stuff where you used to be when you were young, elementary school. What did you want to do when you grow up? And you had this like, I want to do this. Well, then the bills hit you. And then you realize like, we're not doing that. And we got this desk job at Wells Fargo and hate our life. And like, they don't even have this idea of like, hey, but if money were no object, what would you do? It's hard for people to get out of the rat race of their own self. And I do think this is a cultural thing of the more we get uncomfortable, or the more that we feel like we try to like make ourselves the center of our world, right? We kind of like, even in culture today, it's like, find your happiness, and you're like, really focus on who you are and what makes you happy. And it's trying to like get into this individual of who are you and who may like, but really what I feel like the Bible calls us to do is like be outward facing of like, no, go serve other people.
Yeah.
And stop being the center of your world and start realizing how good you have it, because other people don't have it as good as you. And that really stems from the yes and I want to contribute, and I want to be out in the world, and I want to serve other people, and I want to see how amazing my life is outside of things that like maybe it'll be I'm having a rough day, right? Because it's easy to start going internal, but I feel like what we're called to do is like, go external, like start impacting the world and see how your inner life is happier when you focus not on yourself, but other people. And so that's the yes and I think mantra that you guys are doing. And I love that the improv, it stems from improv, because aren't we all kind of sometimes improving our life?
100%. I don't know what any day is going to be like. So you're constantly,
right.
Well, okay, we're going to tackle that today. I didn't know that was going to happen.
Totally. And having this attitude of like, but let's make a memory too. Like, that's the coolest part, because let's say you say yes and it's like a disaster. Well, if I wouldn't have said yes, I wouldn't have had the disaster to have as a memory bank to be like, remember that time? Like, even bad things can be actually
hilarious later.
Yeah, hilarious, right? If you have the right attitude, right?
Exactly.
So, okay, so let me ask you this, because let's just talk a little bit about Growl. Like, both of you guys are married, and you guys are like running this thing together. Tell me how that has shaped you guys' marriage, you guys' relationship, your business. Like, how I'm sure our listeners are hearing like how you guys are the yin and the yang. Like, you both are very great at complementing each other. So help me understand, like, as being married, how is it running a company together?
I can start, Greg. Go ahead. No, go ahead. You had something.
No, go ahead. No, go.
It's been an evolution, like everything. I think, we've had to learn how to work together. And I think I think at the beginning, we probably were better business partners than we were married partners.
Oh.
And I think that tended to take over our marriage as we first started Growl. And I think that happens a lot with couples, that especially if you own a business and you're married, your life is so intertwined. And so it's really hard to separate those things, and realizing that and creating boundaries was a learning curve for sure. And figuring out like, hey, after 5:30 or 5 o'clock, we're not talking about this anymore, or we can have 30 minutes where we're going to talk about this. And then we need to just be a married couple and not deal with work finances or the employee that's driving you crazy or whatever it is. Just learning to let it go until tomorrow when we can deal with it again. That was a huge learning curve for us. Yeah. And one of the things I think that really helped that we got the opportunity to kind of separate business, where I actually went and left for about 1.5 years and worked for a previous client of ours. So I stepped back. I was never gone from the business. I was still very much involved, but I wasn't in the day-to-day from 8 to 5 and working with our employees and working with our clients. And that separation really allowed us to take a moment to reset. And then when I came back, really realizing, okay, this is what worked well before. This is what didn't work well before. Let's make sure we don't bring those patterns back into this version of Growl, and figure out how do we do a better job. And, part of it too is we talk about, kind of our board of advisors, and, you are definitely one of those people in our kind of personal and Growl board of advisors, where we need those people in our life, whether it's advising us on finances, advising us on coaching, advising us on our spiritual life, having that full board of advisors to be accountable to in our life, whether that's in business or in our personal life. And the nice thing is most of those people blend both as well, like you we're talking about, you're in our personal life, you're in personal finances and business life and business finances and friendship. And that's what's been really great about really everyone we've put in our circle.
That's good. That's good. Greg, what would your answer be?
I mean, I think it's no rainbows and ponies. I think, when
cupcakes and rainbows.
Yeah.
Cupcakes and candy bars.
I think we're blessed that we can work together. I know that, we got a chance to meet a lot of your, close friends when you brought us together, and it was amazing. And I think that helped solidify a lot of things for us even more, right? That I think having certainly, like Libby said, stepping out of the business, but I think the biggest thing that brought us back in alignment, and it isn't easy, is faith. And I want to kind of bring that forward, that 25 was a very tough year for us. And as I look back, as we kind of like, it's funny how you kind of lean into faith deeper when, you're like, I don't know what's going on, God, there's all these challenges, I need your wisdom. Trial. Yeah. Sure. And I think, God works in mysterious ways, but I think also, I was thinking like Proverbs 16:3, commit to the Lord wherever you do, and he will establish your plans. And I think that is so true what happened with us. We he didn't waste these hard seasons. I think he was shaping us, right? I mean, we had to make some changes. We had to do something different for the future to be together. And I think we're starting now to see the fruits of that. I don't know how Libby feels, but I finally am starting to feel like that's there. And I think that part of working together is becoming a lot more fun, I guess. There's always going to be challenges, whether you and I, Philip, are business partners, and you might have had business partners in things, but if you and I were, you're going to have challenges. I've had business partners in the past, and I think everybody should go to business partner school and be like, and maybe it's church. I have no idea, but I think it's something like that where you go, maybe it's, and you're like, here, it's going to, when it gets tough and you guys don't agree, you're going to have to, how are you going to work through it? Right. And I think that's kind of what Libby and I had to work through, like when it gets challenging, and and again, she's just a hell of a lot smarter than me. So that's the other problem.
There's that part. There's
she's
that
working with a dum-dum sometimes, it's like, I don't even know why I have a computer half the time. You know what I mean? It's like, she's got to, I think God tests her with me because it's like, but I do believe that having faith, and prayer, and I strongly believe it. I think it's changed different things. Libby, I don't know how you feel. Like, I'm just wanting to bring it up because I do think last year guided us and shaped us into something that if someone would have said, "You're going to go through this, and here's what it's going to look like on the other side," I would have been like, "I don't know about that." But here's where we are. I don't know what you think, Libby.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, certainly 2025 brought us to our knees, that's for sure. But I think, you were saying about having business partners, and whether your business partner is your spouse or someone else, there are challenges. And, you're going to have conflict. You're going to disagree.
Absolutely.
And that's just a guarantee. And I think it's how you work through those. And on the other side, I've been in peer groups with other companies that have had business partners that they're not married, and and I feel very blessed actually to be married, because one thing that we never have a problem with is what our end goal is and what our vision is, and because we're very much aligned on that, and our goals are always going to be aligned because we're married and we have a vision for our ultimate life, and the business is there to support our life versus kind of the other way around. And we're both really focused on that and not letting the business run our life, but support it. And I think you don't always have that in a regular business partnership where you could, this person may want to retire in 5 years, but you want to but the other one wants to grow the business to $10 million or something. You're not always aligned on what those goals are. And I think being married, that makes that side a lot more straightforward.
Sure.
Now, I know what you're going to ask next.
Help me. Yeah, hit me.
I know. You're going to ask, is the sex as hot as you think it is? And it is.
Okay.
It's just when you're in business with your wife, I would tell anybody, just go do it. It's just going to make it that much hotter.
I mean, that was what I was going to ask.
Yes, and I know I could see it on. I knew what you were going to ask.
Got to kind of regroup because you just ripped that one right out.
I did. I had to bring it up because everybody's asking when you're like, it must be like, we have to have separate spaces or we couldn't keep our hands off each other. Philip.
So hot right now. So hot right now.
Greg. You know what I mean? I mean, she locks me in she says she locks me in a room because of that. I don't know if that's true, but I say, I understand it's hard if you keep your hands off me. That's why. And then she comes and lets me out for dinner. Okay. But it's so I don't know if that's normal for other husband and wife couples, but I understand.
I'm glad we touched on that, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my next question after that question that we just talked about. So yes and fosters this adding on to, okay? And I feel like health has been one of those things where both of you have said yes and then it stemmed to this it's just an awesome part of your life, and you guys are continuing to encourage and spur each other on, not only in your marriage, your business, but your health. So I want to talk and where has the yes and taken you and your health journey in the last 18, 12 months?
Wow.
Well, just name it, Libby. Just, we lost a person.
I know we lost a large person together. Yeah. So, I mean, my wow was I don't even know where to start because we're completely different people than we have ever been, probably in our adult lives, but certainly in our married life together. We were active. I think right when we got married and before we moved over to the western slope of Colorado, and business has a way of kind of taking over. And I think that's why we very much have the forefront goal of businesses to support our life versus the other way around, because the other way around got us to, 100 some pounds overweight and not total each. And, so, we've both lost well over 100 pounds each, and we're running and active. And, I'm certainly in the best shape I've ever been in my life, not just my adult life. And I think Greg as well. Greg's probably the same size as he was in high school, I would have to guess. I've only seen pictures, but, we are running, as Greg said earlier. We're training for the thing that scares the crap out of me called high rocks. And we're doing that in less than 6 weeks. And,
oh, wow.
And I'm excited and super scared, but the best thing is we're doing it together, and it is a doubles. So, what I can't do, Greg can do, and we can always, take over for each other. So it will definitely be a true test of our couplehood. But also training for a half marathon this summer, and just exactly saying yes. And it wasn't both of us started at the same time. So and I started actually kind of losing weight first about 3 years ago, very slowly. And a year ago, Greg really joined in on that. And then we layered in not drinking, and then we layered in harder exercise, and then we layered in strength training. And then exactly. It was very much yes and I think that's what's made us successful is we didn't go out of the gate like we have in the past. The Olsons are notorious for let's cram as much stuff into a tiny amount, a tiny box as possible, and then we don't become successful. So I think the reason we actually are successful this time is it was very much layered on. We started with walking, then we layered on eating better, then we layered on not drinking, then we layered on something else. And so it really was a slow progression of just getting better and healthier and more fit. And now we feel like, middle of last year, I was saying, I don't know how we could tackle this year in the shape that we were in, and living the life that we were in. If we were in the shape that we were in, if we were drinking the way we used to drink, I don't know that we would have made it through 2025 successfully.
Wow. That's a testimony right there.
Yeah. I mean, it's been amazing. We started, the journey. Libby was on this journey well before I was, and walking and losing weight. And, we would go for walks, and she was doing this walk run for weight loss, and I was doing walk, crawl for weight loss. And it's nothing better as a man and she is 8 years younger. We've all heard that at the beginning of the story. So, but she would run and then walk back to me as I'm walking. So it was, so I know I wanted to do something, but, luckily we were doing, this Run the Edge, plan where you walk as many miles as a year, walk, run, bike, whatever your thing is. But so 2024, 2025, 2025 miles, 2000. So, well exceeded that last year, and we'll do it again this year. But now we're at a point where we're able to say yes and to things like 8-mile runs in Iowa and 10K runs and things that we never thought we would do more of. Right. So I'm excited.
We're enjoying it, by the way.
Yeah. And I think
enjoying it.
We're eating better, better habits. And Libby's right. I don't think, something was preparing us for that, like God, I'll say that because I think it was happening, and to prepare us for something that was going to happen, it's kind of like we started at Storing Grain and getting ready and watching our money and, working with you. We met you well before any of that was happening, and you were able to guide us through some really challenging times and like, hey guys, it's okay. Right? You're going to be okay. You've got money. You got this saved. You can use it like this. You're okay. You've always, so there's a reason we all met, right? It's great to meet people when everything, you're high on the hog and, there's no worries in the world. But then when lean times happen, it's a testament to how you're preparing yourself without knowing you're preparing yourself, and having that yes and mentality. So Libby wanted to have that yes and this year. I don't think we really said it was yes and intentively, like everything,
right?
Because there was a lot of no's, like, I don't know if we can do that. I don't know if we should spend money, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And so now it's more yes and. So I think we're more open in those conversations.
Right. It's funny how, especially business owners, like we feel like the best thing that we can do is focus 100% attention on our business. And we see like traction, or we start seeing success or whatever, or we go through a bad year, and the people who don't focus on the other areas of their life end up just self-imploding. Like it's just a bad situation where maybe they get a divorce. Like, oh gosh, like, well, cause you spent so much time focusing on one thing and you forgot that there's other things out there, like relationships, your health, the way that you show up with your faith. Like there are way other things, but I think as business owners, sometimes we forget, like, no, this is the best thing I can do is focus on this one thing. And we forget, like, that's only a part of our life. That doesn't have to be all of our life. And how do we compensate, and how do we put things in place where we can start focusing on what is the core values of our life and make sure that those things are still being intentional, of like your marriage? It's high priority. Your health, don't let that slip, right? Because sometimes you get on top of the mountain, you look back and you're like, man, I'm on top of the mountain, but I have no wife. Like, my health is deteriorating. Like sometimes the joy is in the journey and trying to focus on other things other than just a business. So, okay, my last thing I want to talk about is your faith. Is like, how has that played a role as you guys start talking about running a business and your marriage and your health? I feel like faith is like the underwoven theme about all of this. And so I just wanted to give you some time to talk about your faith. Where is it going? Where is it now? Where does it come from? Those kind of things.
You want to start, Greg?
Sure. I grew up Lutheran, just to give a head, so I had these elders and, so I think faith for me, as I went through college, then I kind of was more of a silent believer, right? I wasn't really moving around a lot. I wasn't really going to finding a church that was resonating. When Libby and I met, it wasn't really something that was together. It wasn't really forefront, right? I think that was something missing. It's just how our lives came together, right? I think we've always both been believers, but not so much talking about it together, right? So it's something I've always explored. But not with Libby. And I think that was probably the missing part of, leading a relationship and doing that. So I think, over the last couple of years of really kind of figuring out how do we step into that together. That part is, I think, really strengthened and changed that. And really what was missing in our lives was really other Christian friends and believers. And when you just start to put it out there, like in prayer and that, all of a sudden we started meeting a lot of other believers, right? And that part was amazing to me. It's like, wasn't something like you can go online and put on Facebook and be like, hey, everybody, I'm looking for Christian believers who love Jesus. Just get back to me. And, it isn't that way. Right? Yeah, I love Jesus, and or the people who are announcing it might not be the same beliefs that you feel like. Okay, that doesn't. Yeah, so that's not the yes end, I think. But then when you just pray about it, and you start meeting. Also, we and we have other friends, and then we find a church, and then we start going. And I think there's that little bit of yes and right, and a little bit of uncomfortable when you're trying to get into the. Get into the faith river, let's call it. So you have to trust that it's going to take you somewhere, right? I think you wade into this, I call it a faith river without a life. You don't even have, you're just like, I'm going in, and your wife is like, where are you going? You're like, I don't know, but we're going together. And she's like, I didn't know you had a Bible, right? And then, so it's a little bit like that, right? And I think, and again, I think, something was preparing us. And if I look back, it's a weird thing to say. And if anything, I would say Libby grew up probably in more churches than me, right? Just she's much more knowledgeable, and we talk about things but we actually enjoy now the Bible in a year, and we're going through this Acts book. And so we've actually gotten into this groove now that honestly, it's hard to do that. You don't just wake up one day and be like, hey, honey, you want to start reading Acts together? And she'd be like, what? It doesn't really work. I don't know. Maybe it does, but it's not that way with us. But So we started meeting more Christian friends. I feel like I'm being called, leading some different groups. We started a Bible study at home, just things that we would have never done even 2 years ago, right? That wouldn't even been on our radar. So I think those things happen for a reason. And you and I have had those discussions and about certain things, and that's been helpful. So, I'm a little surprised by it sometimes, but I feel, I'll say being in that faith river feels right to me. And it feels like it's taking us where we need to go and what's happening. So anyways, that's a little bit of how I, a little bit of my yes ending on that right now. Libby, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think as Greg said, so I did grow up in the church. My mom is a very strong Christian woman, and I went to church all the way through college, after college, and was involved. I was part of the worship team. I was part of the worship team and Campus Crusade when I was at college. But I think through that whole time, I think my faith was like a piece of clothing. It was a part of me, but it wasn't inside. It was part of my identity. It was part of who I was. I didn't really know anything else because I grew up in the church. And then through circumstances in the church that I was going to, the friend group that I was going to, just kind of ripped all that apart in my late 20s. Mm-hmm. And I never turned away from God, but I definitely turned away from the church and just kind of walked away one day and just didn't really want any part of it. And it really wasn't until just about a year ago, a little over a year ago, when Greg said, I think we should go to church again. And I was feeling that myself.
Sure.
And felt like, yeah, I think that sounds good. I think we should try and figure this out. Didn't necessarily know how I felt about everything really, but felt like that was the right thing to do. And, I've just grown tremendously again in my own faith. And I think, really having it now that's a part of me, and still asking a lot of questions of God and trying to understand, who are you? What is your character? And, trying to learn that almost for the first time and, at almost 50 years old. And, but really, really owning it as my own versus just this thing that's the only thing I know to believe. And as Greg said, it's really amazing to look back over the last several years and see God's hand and kind of placing us in different situations with different people. And, one of the things we really struggled with moving from Denver to Fruita was finding a group of friends. And as I said earlier, Greg's super engaging. We had no problem meeting people and having acquaintances and finding people to go do something with. We didn't have friends and, people that we really could share our lives with and share our struggles with. And so I think some of that was a little bit of protection, that the people that we were hanging out with weren't the right people. And so it was kind of waiting for us to kind of come back to God, come back to the church and get to know people in that circle. And also even the house that we purchased, we're next door. Our next door neighbors are an amazing couple of faith, and their sister lived down the street. Their sister lives down the street, and she also is. And so just having conversations with them, how that kind of, pecked at our hearts a little bit over the last 8 years. We coming to know you and you being our wealth manager and you're a man of faith. And we had no idea, at the very beginning, but, and same with the gym that we go to. We had no idea that both of the trainers, well, I guess all three, Lauren, Scott, and Kana, are all believers and, go to church in our community and just the different areas that God continued to place us in. He's like, I'm going to get you. So you're going to come back to me. You're going to figure it out. And really circling us with people that loved him and had strong faith, that it's amazing to kind of look back at that and go, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. And God put us in 3 churches, which is the weirdest things right now. So all 3 different, right? On different locations that, we're being called to. And, and that's a yes and for me moment right there, right? Is I think when things happen like that, you just say yes and to God a little bit. And it's like last night I was on a disciple group with a church 1122 out of Florida online. And the guy's like, Greg, I think you should lead lead a disciple group. I think before I'd be like, I don't know, right? I don't know if I'm ready. I'm still working through Acts, and I'm kind of confused about this whole
Holy Spirit thing.
Yeah, what's happening? But it, and I said, sure, if that's what that's where I have to go, let's do it. Right. And, I used to think like, well, how am I going to fit all this in? What's going to happen? And I think, and it's a funny feel. You sleep better. It's something that's outside of work. It used to be like, well, I got, is it a networking thing? Am I going to join this chamber, or should I go to, and then once you leave that behind, right, all the other doors will open. And that's, I think, what faith is. I think it's like, if God is first, and I think if you have that faith first mentality, I think it's faith, family, and fitness. And I didn't come up with 3 F's. It just resonated that way. But I think that's been our goal this year, last year and this year, was faith, family, and fitness. Right. And I think if you can sync those together somehow, like take care of God, take care of your family, take care of yourself, I think a lot of things are going to open up for you. And then work will be down there. Work will happen. God will put those opportunities in front of you and open those doors. But I think we're upside down many times on that, right? We're so financially driven by our work, and I'm going to work longer, get up earlier, join that club or join this golf, whatever it is. But it leads you. I don't think it works. And I've been doing this a long time, and I think things are starting to open up the other way. So that's how I feel. So
it's good. Well, thanks for letting me just have the time to hang out and talk. And the information that you're providing is like invaluable. So I hope all of our listeners is like, I want a yes and for 2026. I want to stop being internal and stop thinking more selfishly, but like, how can I start contributing to society? I think your marriage is so great because you complement each other so well. But I think if I would give you 3 things, I usually like to leave people with this, is I would say the 3 like things in my head when I think about you as a couple is just you're encouraging. You just do such a good job encouraging other people, and that's electric. You strengthen not only yourself, but other people around you. Kind of goes along with encouragement, but your faith. I think those are my 3 words for you, is encouragement, strength, and faith. I just think it's great. And I just love how you guys complement each other. And it's just like fueling this snowball down this mountain of momentum and encouragement and awesomeness. So thank you so much for being part of the show.
You bet, Phil. Thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a blessing to just really call you a friend. So,
I appreciate that. Well, you've been listening to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast. Until next time, be yes and go hit the streets. Thanks for listening.
That's all for this episode, brought to you by Uncommon Wealth Partners. Be sure to visit uncommonwealth.com to learn more about our services. Don't miss an episode as we introduce you to inspiring people who are actively pursuing an uncommon life.